In a quiet neighborhood in Waterbury, Connecticut, a chilling story of neglect and abuse unfolded behind closed doors.
This is one of the worst treatments of humanity that I've witnessed in 32 plus years of law enforcement work. And to think that it was allegedly committed by a guardian, a stepmother, someone that was responsible for the care of a minor is really hard to get your head around.
A story that remained hidden for over 2 decades.
At the time, what I thought was a child, he was in the fetal position.
There was a room in the house that appeared to have locks on it from the exterior portion of the house.
Not a damn thing was done. That's the tragedy of the whole thing.
This is the gruesome tale of a young man who was locked away, deprived of freedom, basic needs, and love.
Like a scene from a horror movie is how state prosecutors described it. Kimberly Sullivan in Waterbury Superior Court today, accused of locking her stepson in a room for 20 years.
At the time, what I thought was a child, he was in the fetal position.
There was a room in the house that appeared to have locks on it from the exterior portion of the house.
Pulling him out of school in the 4th grade as an 11-year-old.
He never went to 5th grade. It wasn't just me. It was the school nurse over and over again, making calls to the mother, trying to get doctors involved with it, because we knew this kid was not healthy.
He only just escaped. The fire department says the victim set a fire in his room last month using hand sanitizer and printer paper. That's what called first responders to the house on Blake Street. They found him emaciated, 31 years old and just 68 pounds, standing 5'9". He's receiving the medical treatment he so desperately needs, but now Sullivan is facing charges including assault and kidnapping. Her attorney says she's innocent. Hear from him and more on this whole story.
He was not locked in a room. She did not restrain him in any way.
I don't hate people at all. This one, I hate.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna break this down to the minute details, telling you all the things that the media is not telling you. Before we get into this video, do us a small favor and click that subscribe button and click that notification bell so that you could be notified for more content like this. Help us reach 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Surviving Kimberly Sullivan. Let's talk about it.
It's a matter of opinion. If I'm right, but I'm leaving off one out to go outside, putting shores and obligations on our part.
Kimberly, you've been called a
Kim,
wicked,
follow me.
evil
Excuse me,
stepmother.
guys.
Is this
Excuse
true?
me. Excuse me.
Kimberly, why did you lock
Kimberly,
your
if you haven't done
stepson?
anything wrong, why was your stepson 68 pounds when he was found?
Kimberly, do you have anything to say to your stepson?
Meet Kimberly Sullivan, a 56-year-old woman now facing serious charges of first-degree assault, second-degree kidnapping, first-degree unlawful restraint, first-degree reckless endangerment, and cruelty to a person. Now, when you look at this woman, judging by her frame, the way she looked, you think, this woman can't even hurt a fly. She could probably barely lift an iPad. But yet, everybody that know this demon had nothing but negative things to say about her. Not one person had something positive to say about her.
We all were like inboxing each other like, wait a minute, isn't that Kim? Isn't that for... And sure enough, it's Kim. You have to be an evil entity to do that to a human being, period. How do you, especially your stepchild that you've been trusted with.
As Griffin continues to follow the case of her former classmate, she hopes that the best can come from such a terrifying situation.
He's brave for setting that room on fire because he didn't know what the outcome was going to be. He just hoped that it came as it did, and I'm glad it did for him. I hope he makes a full recovery.
Kimberly, she wasn't well liked. She was constantly lying, argumentative with other people.
Lee Wassel says he worked with Kimberly Sullivan from 2019 through 2021 at a retail store inside the West Farms Mall. He says she didn't get along with most of her coworkers, but complained to them about being in debt or having to take care of her husband.
Her husband was handicapped, was in a wheelchair, and how she hated when her shift was over, how she had to go home to take care of him.
Wassel says she did talk positively about her 2 daughters. Did she ever talk about her stepson?
Never mentioned him at all. Never mentioned him. I was very shocked, but then I was not surprised because of the way she was. the way she acted and the way she lived.
When all of this came about, none of us were really surprised.
Jeffrey Guglielmo says he went to Wilby High School in Waterbury with Sullivan. He also said back then she was very argumentative with her classmates and teachers.
But we didn't think she was this dark. Because that's really, you got to be a real horrible person to do that to somebody.
Now, the big question is, how did this come to be? How would this man stay in captivity for over 20 years suffering through starvation and abuse? Well, to tell this story, we got to rewind the clock and start from the beginning.
I don't hate people at all. This one, I hate.
The 52-year-old gave up custody of her son shortly after his birth in 1993. When asked why, she says the story starts with her daughter, Heather Tessman, and losing custody of her back in 1990.
DCF took her, said that she had shaken baby syndrome.
Valoran says her daughter's father was charged and Tessman went to live with foster parents. She said the custody battle broke her. Around this time is when she met her son's father, Craig Sullivan.
I ended up trying to kill myself because I knew I wasn't getting her back. Craig would visit me while I was in the hospital. After we got married, we had our son. I was still having issues coping. Things didn't work out between the two of us, and I was thinking that I was giving my son a better chance at a full life. If I had known what... I just can't fathom. I have no words.
This was the moment right here that she sealed the victim's fate. Now, we do know the victim's name, but to protect his privacy, we're going to call him John. Law enforcement, all the media outlets, it seemed like they're all doing their diligence to protect John's identity. So here on Matter of Opinion, we're going to do the same. Now, this is the part of the video where things get graphic, and we're going to break down all the details of what actually took place in that house. From the age of 3, John remembers always being hungry and sneaking out of his room to get food and water. Even in preschool, he would drink water from the toilet because he was only given 2 cups of water a day. Now, you're probably asking, why drink water from the toilet? From the information that was provided, he wasn't tall enough to reach the fountain. Now, him sneaking in and out of his room, Kimberly caught him and started locking him in his room after she found evidence of food wrappings inside of his room. All throughout John's school years, the teachers, everybody noticed that something was wrong because he was always hungry. He was always asking students for food, stealing their lunches, and even going as far as looking for food in the garbage. With the teachers, the nurses, the principals all being concerned, they contact DCF and later notified the police.
I just remember seeing this kid. He was just so tiny, much smaller than usual 5-year-old. And he had no color to his face, and he looked emaciated. He looked like he wasn't eating at all. The kids were coming in the morning, and there was an old bathroom, boys' room downstairs, and they had the old type ceramic urinals, which were probably about 4 feet high, bigger than him. And I would walk in there in the morning, and he would be flushing the toilet, drinking the water coming out of the urinal as it's raining. I'm going, oh man, there's something wrong with this. And he would tell me he's thirsty. Then I'm thinking, well, maybe he's thirsty. He can't reach the fountain because the water fountain was too high. Then I would find him in the bathroom almost every morning, opening up his little lunch. He had a plastic lunchbox that kids use, and it was filthy, disgusting, with just old food and crust and everything else on it. And he would open it up. This is 8 o'clock in the morning, and he starts shoving all his lunch into his mouth. What the heck are you doing? Oh, I'm hungry. I said, didn't you have breakfast? No. What's going on here? And at this point, I would call his mother, and I'd say, the kid's hungry. He's eating his food in the bathroom, this and that. Didn't get anywhere. He stopped doing that, okay? And the year progresses, the teachers are all concerned. His kindergarten teachers, what's going on with him? He's always hungry, blah, blah, blah. As he gets into 1st grade, the next year, when you go to lunch, we're getting reports from other kids that he's stealing their lunch. He's literally taking it while they're eating and eating their lunch. He was doing it constantly. So again, like Mr. Principal, I called the mother just to kind of say, hey, what's going on, this and that. Oh, I'll take care of it, no, this, not. He's eating, there should be no problem. He had the teachers up to 4th grade. They were constantly bringing food in for the kid. And he was just ravenous, devouring it all the time. Between myself, the school nurse, the parent liaison, the teachers, called DCF numerous times. If I'm saying 20, that's probably being conservative. And whether they investigate, you do the paperwork, you do the phone call, they do the investigation, they come back, we went to the house and nothing, this and that. You really weren't getting anywhere going through that agency. In my 35 years, 14 as an administrator, DCF dropped the ball 99% of the time. I want to make a point that it wasn't just me. It was the school nurse over and over again making calls to the mother, trying to get doctors involved with it, because we knew this kid was not healthy, not getting anywhere. It was the parent liaison. It was the teachers. I could remember almost every teacher from kindergarten, first, second, third grade being in my office with me calling DCF together.
So with the back and forth with DCF and the police, they found no foul play. And John was coached by Kimberly to make sure to tell them that everything was fine. She threatened him, telling him that if he didn't, he would stay in his room even longer and his food rations would be even less. So out of fear, John did what she asked and told them that everything was fine. They stopped coming to the house when Kimberly threatened to file harassment charges against those in the school that are constantly calling DCF and the police to come check on John and see what's going on in that house. And after the first couple of visits, she took John out of school, and if anybody asks, her excuse was he's being homeschooled.
He never went to 5th grade. It was a small neighborhood school. It was maybe 250 kids. You know all the kids, you know the neighborhood, this and that. And so I would start asking the kids, hey, you see this and that? And I knew the kids who lived right next door. And I would ask them, and they would tell me, oh yeah, we see him. He's in the window of the house waving out the window. I said, well, does he ever come out and play? Do you ever see him in the yard? No, we never see him in the yard. He never plays, he never comes out. I said, well, how long is he in the window for? Well, he's in the window for a little while, and then we see him the next day or the next day. I called the police at least 2 or 3 times, could be more, for wellness checks. And I gave statements in terms of there's something wrong. But I remember them saying, yeah, they went to the house, they saw the kid, they talked to the mother, everything's fine. And I would respond by saying, how is everything fine? He's not going to school. I mean, I specifically remember the police telling me, well, the mother said she's enrolling him in Wolcott schools. There was no record of him going to Wolcott school. I think the story the mom gave me, she's homeschooling him. I think that's the story she gave to the police. She'd always had a song and dance. The laws are different in school attendance. You could just simply withdraw your child from school, and you didn't even have to make a plan for homeschooling. It was a very lax system, and a lot of parents would just say, oh, I'm homeschooling them, and that was it. And at one point, the parents had to provide a portfolio to the principal. Here's what they're doing. Very few ever did it, and it was never mandated in terms of, they never pressed the case on it. Where is it?
So up to this point, DCF failed him, the police failed him, and we're seeing the way the school system is structured for homeschooling or to take your child out of school, that also failed him.
The 2 sisters went to St. Margaret's School, but they obviously went to a private parochial school, which was a pretty nice school in Waterbury, and he was at the public school. Everyone really was concerned with this child since he was 5 years old. You knew something was wrong. It was grossly wrong. He was a good kid. The kid really never caused any other than taking people's food, but there was a reason for that. He was really a good kid. He wasn't a malicious kid. He wasn't a troublemaker. He remembers a decent student, considering everything he went through. I honestly expect them to find him dead. That's, I said, a story on Dateline. That's what I always expected. And so did everybody else.
As time passed, his situation got worse and worse. John was always kept locked in a small room. His door was always locked from the outside. First a chain lock, then a padlock, then it turned into a sliding bolt lock.
In that investigation, the chief says he walked through the house and described the small room the young man was held in since he was 11 years old.
The very small room on the second floor of the house, more so of almost a storage area, more so than a bedroom, but it was being utilized as a bedroom. Seeing the door with the external lock, the slide bolt lock on it, seeing the remnants of locks that had progressed through evolution. There were such extremes that were gone to keep this under wraps and keep it away from family members and the public eye.
His daily routine was predictable. He would be let out of his room around 8 a.m. every morning for 15 minutes to 2 hours to do chores. And as he grew older, His food rations of 2 cups of water and 2 sandwiches a day stayed the same. He had no access to doctors nor dental care, to the point that pieces of his teeth would break off when he ate. And we're talking breaking off when he's eating sandwiches, y'all. His hygiene deteriorated, and he resorted to using bottles and newspaper for waste disposal. What he did was kind of genius. He would drain the bottles with a series of straws through a hole in the window. And as far as his feces, he would roll it up in a newspaper and tie it with a string from an unraveled shirt that he had in his room, and he would bring it out with him when he did his chores. He kept track of time by counting cars as they passed by the window, and a radio that allowed him to follow University of Connecticut basketball and NASCAR.
We're told the victim's only connection to the outside world was a radio kept outside that room.
We're literally talking about a man that don't know how to operate an iPhone or even a microwave. John was given only 4 books a year, and he used the dictionary to help educate himself. The mental conditioning that Kim Sullivan did to John was relentless. He was to remain out of sight, out of mind, not speak to anybody, and if he did, he would not see the light of day. So with the life that this man was living day in and day out, the burning question is, why did he not try to escape? Why would he stay and absorb this abuse for so long? The thing is, back in 2005, he actually did try to escape, but he got caught when he tried to escape. Kimberly slapped him in the face and then put plywood on both sides of his door so that he couldn't get outside of the room. She basically locked him down. This is the same plywood that police found when they did their investigation, and the same plywood that John described when they interviewed him. After that experience, and he saw that his time out of the room diminished significantly, he decided against trying to run away. On top of that, one day while he was cleaning and doing chores, he found a gun inside of the house. So that further kept him on the edge of worrying if he got caught trying to escape. But one of the biggest factors that kept him from escaping was if he got caught, that his food, the small food that he was getting, would diminish. And to a person that is starving, they look forward to that meal that they're going to get. And then when you factor in all the mental conditioning from years and years and years, that was enough to keep him in line, because this was the only life that he knew. You're talking from 3 years old. If he never experienced anything else, why would he think that there's a better life? There's a reason why he recalled everything from 3 years old, because a normal life before that is foreign to the man. So that alone kept him in the situation that he was in.
Licensed clinical social worker Phyllis DeJoya says the same could also be said for the man's psychological state.
This child, unfortunately, was set up for every kind of delay. He had said that he remembered being locked in his bedroom as early as 3 years old. The development of a sense of emotional safety and security would have been damaged at that very early age. The stability of all he has ever known is abuse. There's only one way that would be threatened, and that would more than likely be his own life. There must have been some threat much bigger than his perpetual state of survival. His version of normal is going to be an integration, I would imagine, of what he has known and what he can learn. Learning coping strategies, cognitive behavioral therapy, trauma-informed care are absolute musts.
I mean, think about it. The last time John ever left the house was around 14 or 15 years old with his father to go dispose of yard waste. Now, it's reported that his father was wheelchair bound. So sometime between his father passing last year, January 2024, and that time back when he was 14 or 15 years old, somewhere his father wind up wheelchair bound. I'm assuming it was soon after. This is my opinion here, because that's when he physically stopped leaving the house. And that's the last time he said he ever left the house. So if he was leaving the house time by time with his dad and it came to an abrupt stop, I believe soon after that time, that's when the dad was wheelchair bound. Again, this is just an opinion because there were no records found of when the dad was actually wheelchair bound. Now, when his father passed away in January of 2024, that's when things took a drastic turn. He went from getting about 2 hours a day outside of the house to just a couple of minutes, if that. From what he said, just to let the dog out for like a minute or two, and it was back in his room in solitary confinement. To me, this is where I think things took such a drastic turn that he decided, I need to get out of this situation. Because again, this is my opinion on it. It was reported when they found him, he was 5'9" and 68 pounds, right? I believe that that degree of malnutrition happened when his father passed away. Because for you to be 5'9", 68 pounds at that weight, how are you able to do anything like any type of physical activity, any type of chores, any type of cleaning? And you're talking over the span of 20 years. I don't believe that that's physically possible. I believe it started when the father passed away, because now there was absolutely no buffer to stop this woman from doing anything she wanted to do to him, which is why he only would spend 1 minute outside of the room. So the one time that he actually was let out of the room, he found a lighter in one of his late dad's jacket pocket, and that was the last piece he needed in order to start this fire. So on February 17th, in a desperate bid for freedom, he set a fire in the storage space where he was confined in using hand sanitizer, printing paper, and the lighter that he found from his dad's belongings. He ignited the flames, knowing it was a dangerous gamble. Once the fire was strong, he stomped and yelled for help, telling Kim that the radio had malfunctioned. After she let him out of the room, he collapsed at the top of the stairs, but Kim made him get up and go to the bathroom to wash his face off to hide his appearance from first responders. Apparently, she called 911 before she let him out of the room.
The TV, I don't know, my son, he was a stepson, he's in his room, and I don't know, he did something with the TV. I was sleeping. I fell asleep.
See flames or smoke?
Yeah, come on, Steph, come on.
Okay, can you get...
Yes, we need an ambulance, please.
Okay.
Please, we need an ambulance.
Ma'am, all right, you said something's on fire and now you need an ambulance. What's going on there?
Yes, his room, the TV in his room.
Did he get injured? Is he on fire?
Yes, he's injured. Please send the ambulance.
Ma'am, I'm going to send the ambulance. I need to know what's going on and why they're going out there. Where is he injured?
I don't know. He's kind of, I don't know. He's kind of passed out. He's out of it. Please. Oh my God, it's like all the power in the house is out. I don't know if it blew a fuse.
Okay, ma'am, just get out of the house, okay?
Yes, I'm going to call my daughter.
All right.
Oh my God.
After washing his face and they was heading to try to escape, he collapsed again. Eventually, the first responders made it and they got him out of the house. When authorities arrived, Sullivan claimed ignorance, asserting that her stepson had a lot of problems but wasn't diagnosed. Yet, as they looked closer, they discovered the truth. A man who had been held captive for years, now weighing 68 pounds, suffering from severe malnutrition and development delays. They then turned their attention to the victim and questioned him on what happened, in which he stated he set the fire. He quote-unquote said, "I wanted my freedom." He told the police that he knew he had to let the fire get to the point where Kim could not put the fire out, and he knew the fire department would have to come. And when attempting to get out of the house, he purposely collapsed so that the fire crew can help him out, because he believed this was the only way out of his situation and how he was being held captive.
This is the worst treatment of humanity that I've ever witnessed. On February 17th, around 8:40 p.m., Waterbury Police responded to 2 Blake Street on a report of a fire. Officers and fire investigators immediately realized there were some grave concerns about some of the conditions in the house. There were 2 occupants of the house, one being Kimberly Sullivan, the stepmother of the male victim. Officers and fire investigators quickly realized that there was a room in the house that appeared to have locks on it from the exterior portion of the house. They began to speak to the male victim, who disclosed that he was being held captive in the house for an extended period of time, approximately 20 years. Here's an adult that was 5'9" and 68 pounds. Frankly, what was being reported was unfathomable to us at that point in time.
With the police doing their preliminary investigation, they questioned Kimberly. She told the police that his door is not locked and he had free reign in the house. When authorities began to investigate, she refused to meet with the police and she got her a lawyer. Once John got to the hospital, doctors were horrified. They described him as cachectic. That's a condition that's typically seen in a patient with advanced cancer or heart disease. He hasn't bathed in years, had severe tooth decay, and was near starvation. His body mass index was a shocking 11, well below the life-threatening threshold.
It's a miracle that he's alive. The fact that his weight is so low, the amount of impact that he's had, it's a miracle that he's alive.
Stepson is in here.
His body mass index is close to 15. It should be minimum 22 for a healthy person. 22 to 23, 24 would be a healthy person. So he needs to be at least another 60, 70 pounds more. So he's half of what he should be. The entire body's adjusting to the lack of enough resources, nutrition. In some cases, it's irreversible damage.
As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that there were other family members that knew about his plight. He also mentioned that his late father and half-sisters were well aware of the situation, but they did not intervene, meaning none of them locked him in the room. Only Kimberly did. There was also an uncle who hadn't seen him in nearly 2 decades express shock at his condition, remarking that he looked like a Holocaust survivor. He said he was pushed away from the family, but remembered the man as skinny, meek, and mild-mannered. He also remembered asking the boy some questions, but Kimberly would intervene. So now, Kimberly Sullivan is facing serious charges. She's out on a $300,000 bail, and she had court on March 24th and the 26th.
Today's proceedings were relatively brief. The state has indicated that they intend to file a motion seeking to add some conditions to Ms. Sullivan's release. The case was continued to Friday, and that matter will be addressed on Friday.
So the judge denied the house arrest request, but is forcing Kimberly Sullivan to wear an ankle bracelet throughout this entire process so the state can keep track of where she is at all times. But like Kara said, Sullivan pled not guilty. She is denying everything, all the horrifying claims of torture, starvation, abuse. Sullivan was met by a large group of reporters and cameras as she went in and out of court, along with members of the public who are furious.
Kimberly,
did your late husband have anything to do with this?
Say something. Crazy woman. You know what you did.
Since the arraignment, the state has had an opportunity to meet with this victim. This victim is afraid. This victim lives in fear. I introduced myself to the victim, explained who I was. His first question in this fear is, why is she out walking around when I was locked up in a room for 20 years?
The last couple of weeks, you said that she's denying the allegations and that she's shocked by the allegations. Do you stand by that?
100%.
If that's the case, then how do you explain her stepson being 68 pounds and no one on the planet besides a couple of people seeing him for the last 20 years?
Well, the great thing about this system is we don't have to explain it. The state has made allegations, and the state has to prove those allegations in court. Those allegations are serious, but those allegations are made by one person. I understand the whole world has jumped on those allegations and has already convicted my client. But the good thing about America is that's not how we work. She's presumed innocent until proven otherwise in court. So the burden rests on the state to prove these allegations. Right now they're just allegations. And I'm sorry that she's been convicted worldwide and everyone wants to proceed to a lynching. But we have a system. She has rights, the same rights that everyone else has, and we intend on protecting those rights and her having her day in court.
She's a stepmother. How do you explain the condition of her stepson being 68 pounds?
Like I said, it's not my job to explain the condition of the stepson. It's on the state to prove these allegations in court. My client has a right to remain silent. She has a presumption of innocence, and we're going to protect those rights. We're not going to answer specific questions about this allegation or that allegation. That'll all take place in court.
So listening to the hearing that happened for the ankle monitoring and house arrest, this prosecutor, I hope he does not fudge up this case, because that lawyer that she acquired sounds like he's a darn good lawyer. I'm not going to front on it. That's just my opinion from listening to it. So I hope the prosecutor do their diligence, because from the outside looking in, it looks like this case is gift wrapped to this prosecutor. And he would have to do a significant screw job to mess this up. So hopefully John gets the justice that he deserves. And he is right. She is innocent until proven guilty. But with the insurmountable evidence, like how can she not look guilty in the public eye? Because she initially said she was carrying on what his biological father wanted as far as how to treat this young man. But if you have any type of conscience, right? When that dad passed away, if you had any type of conscience, wouldn't you have done the right thing? Like, seriously, you would have had to have done the right thing. And once news broke out about this fire, it made former classmates come out in droves, and it even made his sister, who was looking for him for years, along with his mother, come out and actually speak to the media.
35-year-old Heather met her brother when he was a baby. Then they lost touch after the family broke apart. She was adopted. Her brother was sent to live with his biological father.
She spent years searching for him. Little did Heather know he was just 12 miles away, facing daily abuse, starvation, and torture in Waterbury.
I just need him to know that he's got people, and we love him.
When the victim's father, Craig Sullivan, died last year, Heather ramped up her search for her half-brother. Somehow, she says no one outside the house knew where he was, and the ones inside the home were lying to Heather.
That was it.
That was it.
You couldn't find out anything else?
Nothing.
Just like her initial searches, everything she tried failed. Social media, ancestry sites, court records.
I think, personally, that she didn't like that he was not her son, and she took it out on him. Her daughters, they got to go to school, they got to have friends, they got to have jobs, they got to have a life. What did he get? A jail cell?
Why do you think it got to this point? Why do you think her two daughters lived these full lives, yet he was locked up for 22 to 24 hours a day?
I think it was because he wasn't her son, and I know a lot of step-parents can be incredibly vindictive to children. It's not right, and it's awful.
When you saw the physical condition that your brother was in, what was your reaction?
I was mortified. The firefighter that was carrying him to the ambulance, you could tell he wasn't even struggling. He had him cradled like a baby.
One victim right here.
He's 5'9", 68 pounds. I can't even imagine the skin and bones, horrible condition that he was found in.
Heather Tessman and the 32-year-old victim share the same biological mother. All this time, you knew you had a brother out there.
Yeah.
You never gave up looking for him.
No, never.
And so this is what you finally find.
And it's worse than a nightmare.
It's worse than a nightmare.
Absolutely worse than a nightmare.
Her attorneys have said that she's shocked by the allegations, yet he was only 68 pounds when he was found. What do you make of that?
I think that the world is shocked by his condition. Like, how can you not realize that someone is so frail and malnourished and just mistreated in your own home? It's just, I don't buy it.
And when she says that she had nothing to do with that and that it was really her late husband, what do you say?
I say that is baloney. It ramped up after he died, so there's no way that she had no idea what was going on, and I refuse to believe that.
There's been a lot of talk about the two sisters that were living in the home as well. Do you think they should be charged? I mean, they were living with him all those years?
Yeah, at least with aiding and abetting, I'm pretty sure that's a crime.
Honestly, I want to see them all fry. They deserve solitary confinement for the rest of their lives. Drink out of the toilet.
And you live right next door to the house?
Correct.
And how long have you lived here?
I've lived here for about 4 years. I've known my wife for almost 10. So I've been coming here, knowing my wife for almost 10 years.
Okay. And did you know of anything, hear of anything next door?
Nope.
Did you ever see the woman, or you obviously never saw the kid?
I obviously saw the woman, coming in passing. It's like a horror movie in real life. I'm just I'm shocked to even know that there was a son at all. I never even heard of or knew that there was a son until my stepdaughter told me the story about when she was sitting on the swing and she saw a little boy up in the window, or what she thought was a little boy. It turns out that was 15 years ago, so he must have been about 22 at the time.
Usually peaceful over here.
You get a car every 2 or 3 hours.
I heard that there was a fire down here. I was coming home from work. I was like, damn, I hope they're okay. But
on a relatively low-key street, neighbors say it was hard not to notice the commotion on that cold February night.
We didn't see the sun come out that day, but we knew there was someone in the ambulance.
To learn a month later, allegations that a 32-year-old man was captive in that home for 2 decades is hard for many on the street to wrap their heads around.
It's shocking, you know, like not knowing what's going on around you.
To know I was right by here this whole time, and he was going through that suffering. It's heartbreaking. Up in the window, saw a little child. She said had a baseball cap on. He waved to her. She waved to him. And that was it. He walked away, and she never saw him again.
It never felt right. Even as a kid, it never felt right.
I'm trembling right now just thinking about it. I can remember his face, and he was like my kid's age.
Paula DePina and Peter Lopes are mother and son who say they lived directly next door from 2003 to 2009. They told us they maybe saw the stepson out of the house 3 times in the 6 years they lived there, usually doing chores with his late biological father.
He was there all the time, you know, like looking outside. I would come from work, I would look up, and he was there on the window.
And I'm not the only kid that experienced that. There are a bunch of kids that would be like, you know, like, what's going on with him?
This man's story is a testament to resilience in the face of unimaginable cruelty. He has begun to reclaim his life, but the scars of captivity will take time to heal. This tragic story raises urgent questions about accountability, the failures of child protective services, and the darkness that can exist behind closed doors. As we reflect on this gruesome tale, let us remember that every child deserves safety, love, and a chance to thrive. This is a case that we are going to be following. The court cases, everything that happens going forward, we are going to follow it, chronicleize it, and give video updates about it until this man get the justice that he deserves. Kimberly Sullivan is a person that wanted control, that wanted power, and resented a child that was not hers. But yet, she made sure her children got the best so that they can succeed in society. So the attributes of being a good parent was actually there. These are the dangers of having a stepmother or a stepfather raising your child. And if you have an individual that's selfish and put their happiness in front of the child happiness, there will be no buffer to actually protect your child from suffering like this at the hands of a person who see your child as less than. That woman should be sitting in a jail cell without bail, drinking from a toilet, just like she made a 3-year-old boy be forced to do the same thing just to quench his thirst. Drop your thoughts and opinions in the comment section, and if you want to see more content like this, click the card that just popped up. This is Matter of Opinion. I'm your boy Walls P, and this was Surviving Kimberly Sullivan. Catch you on the next one. Peace.